Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm moving along at an incredibly slow pace here, aren't I? I'm going to start on this video. I'm going to continue on with the Enuma Elish translation. And just to remind everybody, I'm using the Timothy J. Stephanie translation for the interpretation. But before I move on, I want to talk about something. I have a posted reading of this where I've read the entire Enuma Elish. So as I'm about traveling around, I can listen to it and study it. And there's a question that came up about that reading from somebody saying, why are there repeats in this? And that is a good question. That's what I want to talk about because there are repeats in here and they're big repeats. But I'm going to tell you those repeats appear elsewhere too in many stories. And you know what? I forget this. I needed to jump back in and add this in. What I'm reading is what came off of the tablets. So there are repeats in the tablets. That having been said, let me back up and tell you why those repeats are there. First of all, something is being called into existence, then it's being employed. It doesn't just show up and work. It has to be called into existence before it can function. Now, let's take a break from a big Enuma Elish type story and go to a short verse teaching for a minute to see if this appears. I'm not going to post these verses. I'll just talk through them. By now, we should be more advanced. Okay. Tao Te Ching, Lao Tzu. The naming is the origin of all particular things. What is that? When we play it out in our psyche, what that means is we grow and as we develop, that whatever we decide in life, what we name, what we give name to, that molestation is shameful. I just named that and that became a part of me. Oh God, I love that over there in that person and this situation and this sort of a thing right here. And my memories, and I'm holding that, and as I walk away, I still remember these things. As I walk away from the other stuff, I still remember them. These are things that are becoming a part of me because I have named them along the way. We are becoming products of who and what our life experiences are leading us to be and the way that we're storing them mentally, the way we choose to accept them. And we don't know any different. I mean, you get molested, it's hurt, right? Yeah, that's what happens. We become that. So there's nothing wrong with that. It's not like it's your fault. This is how humans come about. This is life. And what we're trying to do is figure out how to navigate that and extract ourselves from it. Just tie your own life to that. Think about it. Way back when, before something happened that really hurts you, you were not hurt by it yet. Nothing was happening. Nothing was cycling. Then something happened in life that caused you to have an experience and hold it in a certain way, that it then begin to cycle. We hold it emotionally, and it leads to more, and it leads to more. We're in situations, we're in environments that it is allowed to perpetuate. What does Buddha say? That we become, that we are a product of all that we have thought. And that if we thought with an evil thought at one point in time, which means we've stored something away, then pain continues to follow us like the wheel of an ox that follows the hoof of the ox that draws the carriage or something like that. We get this conceptual idea that something is repeatedly coming after us. They're not teaching it in plain language. They're teaching it in conceptual ideology that is meant to work in the mind of most people that will not turn it in, but they will carry the story. They will still look through it. Jesus has that same short verse style right off the bat. The collections of the Sermon on the Mount, Sermon on the Plain, Gospel of Thomas, grab those, separate them from the Gospels, and read those like Buddha or Lao Tzu. You know, my own theory on this after looking at it a long time is that there is that one basic core template, how we work cosmically. It's an energy-based thing with the brain, and there's a certain functionality that's happening at a core level that we can interact with, and it feels completely spiritual. We are bathed in an emotional sea that we can't see, but we can feel, we can sense, we don't quite understand it. At any rate, we have spiritual experiences that I believe are natural and based on thought processes, and that this is teaching that, but people don't like it. But if you take that basic teaching right there, the human's born, we become products of our experiences, that procreates, it goes out, it gets bigger and bigger as time goes on, we become hurt, we become at the point where we need to be taken over, from a new self to an old self. It's like, I need to emerge above this. What do? I have to find a way to let go of the things that I'm hanging on to, no matter what they are. I have to find what they are. And then go back and resolve these issues, and then come back and have my life change as a result of it. That's the basic core teaching. You will find that very cryptically put into short verse like the Tao Te Ching, and from there emerges Taoism. You will find it in very short verse like the Dhammapada, and from it there emerges Buddhism. You will also find it in the short Jesus verse, like the Gospel of Thomas collection or the Sermon on the Mount or the Sermon on the Plain. And if you took those out, you would realize that they're the same thing as these, and that Christianity, that the entire story of Jesus, his ministry, is based on Christianity was all, emerged from that same template, which is being shared with Judaism and other things. So, I mean, it all fits. It fits. It's a network on this template that fits. And the one difference in those story types, the way they work, is the way that the analogs are written. Whether it's an inward-looking thing in Taoism and Buddhism, it is known that these are cryptic. You're supposed to work them out for yourself, and in the process of that, it moves from something that is academic to experiential. You're wiring your brain as you're going, what does that mean? Naming is the origin of all particular things, Master. What are you talking about? When you finally figure that out, you go, I got it. I got it. You live it. You don't just know it. You don't just recite it. You actually live it through your experience without paying attention to it. It becomes a part of you. So the cryptic verse has that measure of personal aid to it. The religious verse that has you look outward almost kind of has you look away from what you need to do to interpret that verse. It's kind of an outward-looking thing. So the nested the nested template is still there, but in a different carrier that's a different genre. Moreover, of course, and this take a video on its own, honestly, the genre has multiple effects. There's a number of things going on there. It's not just a fake story with a template. It's affecting a population. It's functioning within the population. It's guiding a population. The analogs are doing a variety of things that are more than just carrying the template. But it's weird. When I say analogs, I'm talking about the religions themselves, the vehicles, the arcs. And look at the diversity of them. All of them at the core are the same. On the outside, they allow humans who hate each other to just go ahead and hate each other while they're carrying the template, never even unlocking it. And look at what we have as a result, globally. Look at what is happening in the world in the name of the right religion. Yeah. So it's complicated. Is it the same? Jesus starts right off on the Sermon on the Mount saying that the Sermon on the Plain saying that blessed are the poor, for yours is the kingdom of God. And that does not sound the same. But when we treat them as concepts and not the verbiage, I went back and edited this in. Look, this is an easier way to think about it. It took a while for me to invert my thinking to get here. Take that basic core template of the human. You're born, here's what happened, all that stuff, the whole string of it, and say, this is actually life. The reason we take all that teaching and mirror it into the psyche, which sounds weird, here's the real deal. They take that entire story and say, here's the template of a human life. Hand it off. People go, I'm not doing that. Build it into a story, nest it into a story that's going to help them, but put it in a sequence in such a way that somebody who knows how to extract it and mirror it into the psyche knows that it's in there. But the reality of it is that story is created on the normal life of a human. So what do we have? Analogous metaphoric stories that mirror into the psyche and play in a hierarchy. Once we get that figured out, it's a breeze. An anchored ship will not sail. Conceptually is the same as I cycle around it which I cling to. Here's the tricky part. It is also conceptually the same as the idea that a tree grows up, I chop it down. It grows up again, I chop it down. It grows up, I chop it down. But it doesn't produce anything viable for me. Those are all conceptually the same thing because they're holding the idea that something is repeating that is not good. That's the concept that is in there. Conceptual reading is how we pull these out, is how we extract it, and it fits into the psyche. Okay, so what they're all telling us right in the beginning is when you come about in life, you become a product of your life experiences and the way you have decided those are. If something happens to you and it's horrific and somebody works you through that and you're okay and you live life going, okay, I got a handle on that, you're not going to be hurt by it. Something happens and it never gets dealt with, you can be hurt by that. It's mental. We have to use mental practices to extract ourselves from what we hurt from, that we think are spiritual practices because they have a certain feeling to them, when in all reality those feelings are a result of conflict of our thinking as we go on in life. We continue to develop that stuff, and we need to extract ourselves from that if we want to feel better. All right. Repeats in here. What happens? We get to a big story and they're trying to teach the same thing. But they're doing it not in short verse format. In a storytelling culture, here's your next episode. What's it? Imagine, we're out there, we don't have media. Nothing. You ever been camping remote someplace? Imagine that for a lifetime, except that you don't have a tailgate either. You got a rock home and you're out scavenging, growing things, trying to work with your neighbors, making bread, chomping sand out of it. God, we look at this stuff with today's thinking going, what are they doing? Why didn't they just go to the grocery store? Man, life was so different. We cannot look at these and go, there's something weird there. Yeah, they're telling stories and trying to teach people something. The template is there. Okay, I don't mean to get animated about this. When Lady Huber, that's what this thing is in here. This is an old one. Lady Huber is calling all of these things into being, the Mushu snake and you go through and it's like, yeah, that section in there is weird. And then later it's used and it's all repeated again. It's like, wait a minute, that sounds like the same. But if you look at it, you'll see that there's a creation of it, and then there is the use of it. In fact, you should do this on your own, but I'm just going to quickly read through a couple things. I'm not going to post stuff up on it because it just takes up so much space and time to do it additionally. At this point along, I think we are all on board with what's going on. In Tablet 1, Lady Huber shows up out of nowhere. Yeah, this is the person who creates the evil. Lady Huber, who made all, produced an unfailing weapon. She brought big snakes with piercing teeth and vicious fangs. Their bodies she infused with poison rather. So she creates these things that are like, whoa, that's a lot of evil in there. And these are the things that are, I'm going to say, are analogous to I'm just going to say the way that we hold things inside of us, our volatility, and then the way that we physically express it as we're going through this right here. This is a bad, nasty part of us. As we go through this, we see very evil things being created by Lady Huber, and then then things are being acted out by Tiamat that are so strong that you can't stop them. It scares people away. So what do we picture here? That there are things inside of us, these rages, these seething things that eventually come out in a variety of ways. But they're probably covering it in different ways here. It may not apply. It may not all apply. Some of these analogs may have to do with stealing, raping, stoning innocent people. What are they doing at their time? What are you doing to survive? What are you doing to live? What do we do today that they probably did back then as well? They're probably saying that all of these qualities, as you get hurt over these things and you start doing these things, you start acting out these things, and they get very violent. Nobody can interrupt them. But then what we see is that they get repeated along here. This is an early form of cycle. We don't see a tree growing up, then being cut down and growing back, or a wheel going around or something like that. What we see is a repeat of our life as it's going along, since this is playing out inside of us, that this is our own cyclical behavior that is emergent. And it's multi-layer. It's showing cycles, but it's also showing negativity that is emerging from other qualities. As we get into this story, it unfolds a little bit more. It has a lot of fun things in there that are... I think that they're just a lot of fun puzzle pieces to unlock for people. I would enjoy something like this as a Babylonian. I sure would. The other thing is, as we go through this, what you'll see is that Lady Huber speaks them, and then Tiamat uses them. So they're being created. So they're showing creation, and then manifestation, cyclical patterns, maybe other things in here, all in that repeated pattern right there. So those repeats right there are important. They're nesting something in there. We just look at it today with our biases and go, I don't get that. We got to get out of our biases and go, we got to go be Babylonian kids. What do we want? Okay, and now on to the reason for this video, actually going on to Tablet 2 and the interpretation of that, and what motivates this interpretation, because I've done it before, but as I move along, I keep learning more. So that's what I'm doing, is I'm just trying to, if I express what I know, that it just helps me learn more of it. So it's unfolding as I continue to do this. But there's a part of Genesis that that I don't understand. I don't recognize it from other places. This is it right here. Let me see if I can, there we go. That... too big. There we go. All right. As I go through the Genesis and I'm identifying what they're doing on a creation template. And all of this is explainable. We get down here, going forth and multiplying, experiencing, connecting to our initial self. This is after we're out on our own and experiencing life, and it's just we're growing and developing and moving on. And it's all being held in their analogous terms. There's a part right here where I put that question mark, Adam's descendants to Noah. This is where there is all of the Adam lived 930 years and he died. Then Seth lived 105 years and became the father of Enosh. Seth lived after the birth of Enosh 807 years and had other sons and daughters. Thus all the days of Seth they're just sequencing numbers in here. Names and numbers. Bap, 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 bap. And you know what? I don't recognize that. I don't know what they're doing there. That is, let me close that out. There we go. It's obviously not real. It's analogous like anything else. So I'm curious about what that is. So I decided to come back to the Enuma Elish and go through it again with fresh eyes and see if I can find anything in there that remotely resembles what might be a prototype of that. So yeah, that's what I'm doing here. Let's get on then to Tablet 2. Before we move on, a quick refresher. Here is the flowchart I made to show the template during the creation of each of us. Again, all of these the gods and everything are going to be parts of us. They represent parts of us at various times in our life. In the beginning, Apsu and Tiamat, that's our upper, higher being, mind, and earth. Tiamat, earth, you can just about specifically say that means our earth, our existence. The way we experience our life is earth. Tiamat is going to be our physical experience. Lamu and Lahamu, first gods, that is ourselves before we are experiencing life. Anshar and Kishar, outshone parents. This would be relative to Adam and Eve, naked in the garden, but ready to experience life. So when the man is created, that's us as infants, and then after we've named things and have grown and developed, we become Adam and Eve. We become both a conscious and a subconscious that is naked and unashamed, and then we begin to experience life for sin. It goes from there in the Genesis story. And this one, it's starting off with Lamu and Lahamu is that first self. It's showing us divided, and then that Anshar and Kishar become who Adam and Eve, naked and unashamed in the garden, is. And then we have a passage of time. You see, they're not treating it like a religion. They're like there's a God out there that is judging you. They're not treating it that way. They're not carrying the story in a manner as if there is a God and judge out there so that you have sinned. What they're treating this is life experience happens. And we become products of our life experiences. And that's it. Then we have an offspring called Anu, who actually Nudimmud over here, the way they've got it, it's weird. They don't have like two sons. Nudimmud is an emergent from Anu, not an offspring, but it's almost like a Cain and Abel section right here. There are two sons. One of them is being left alone. The other one is being hit upon right now. So I'm going to leave Anu right there. And I think that Anu's going to show up later, perhaps in the material. But for right now, we've got Nudimmud taken over, same as Anu, but stronger. So this is our two selves after we're grown up, and we could go either way, and we're deciding, yeah, leave me alone. I got a handle on things. Ea is insightful. We have Damkina. Those are offspring of Nudimmud somehow too. There's two of them there, so it's an oddball thing. They've got going on two sons. Offspring to something else, an insightful concept. Remembering these are parts of us. This is an insightful part of us. And then our part that isn't so insightful, perhaps. Marduk, the hero, is emergent from that at this point in time. You can see it's not like the Genesis story where Noah comes in later as the called one. Marduk is being created right here and is going to be brought into play later. But all the components are there. So again, just be aware as they're going along, they're building up the story of our life and what is going on and different parts of us and how they interact with each other and how we change. And over time, we become different from our earlier selves. We become products of the pathways we've taken along the way. And that right here, they've established a couple of things with Nudimmud, Anu, Ea, Insightful, Damkina. Somewhere down in here with Apsu and Tiamat, Marduk is on the other side of help. What we're going to have on this side in this part of the template right here is where all of the turmoil is going to come from. So yeah, we've created that in this part right here. These characters are going to, be a part of that. We got Mumu as the advisor up here to Apsu, who is really the one. Everything emerges from Apsu. Apsu is, I don't know, source, mind, something. And then, of course, up here in the upper right corner, Lady Huber came in. Lady Huber is where, that's where all the bad stuff comes in from. And she's not emergent from anybody. She is not an offspring of anybody in this story. So Lady Huber is what emerges from products of the gods, which ultimately means that our bad characteristics acting out, or the things that we do, the pain that we have, the hurt that we have, the judgment, all the things that we have that are just normal parts of life that don't act out in good ways and that create a bad life for us. Those are all emergent qualities from the gods, and Lady Huber is where the ire and the anger and the acting out and the physical actions all come from right there. She's the one that brings all of that. She's the one that brings that into being, like we talked about earlier in the video. Lady Huber is the one that announces here is the evil that can happen, and then Tiamat is the one who is going to use that ire to act out. Our earlier selves are going to punch holes in drywalls and things like that. You know what, honestly, Lady Huber seems to me emerging, doesn't she, as this, when you're young, you're happy. There's a part of you, though, that it's like your shadow side or your pain body. The way you feel, that bundle of experiences that all of the anger and the hatred and the vitriol emerges from. Yeah, she wasn't there in the beginning. She was a product of life experiences. That's why she emerges from nowhere. She's our Miss Neurosis. She's our emotional pain. That's it. Lady Huber is our emotional pain. And something else that we'll follow up on here before moving on is just right at the end of the tablet, Tiamat, our earlier self, had just affixed the tablet of fate, whoever it is that's in charge. Here, you're the one in charge of this place. And given that to Kingu. Kingu is our earlier self who is going to be the one in charge for a while. All right, that's all set up. Let's jump right into Tablet 2 and see where it takes us. Tiamat then called together the legions of her demon army, assigning divisions to wage war against her sons, the gods. Tiamat caused more harm for future generations than Apsu. It was related to Ea that she was making war preparations, and Ea took heed of that communication upon receiving it, but he was left speechless and sat without uttering a word. After he considered it at length, however, his ire subsided. He went to Anshar, stood before the one who fathered him, and repeated to him everything to Tiamat's plans. O Father, Tiamat, who gave all birth, is set on destroying us. She called together a congress and is like a deranged maniac, and the gods have all gone over to her side, every one of them. Even those which you gave rise to have also joined her force. They have gathered around Tiamat and championed her cause. They were brutal and planned endlessly, both day and night, grumbling and fumbling, all done in the cause of making war. They called together a council of war to consider battle plans. Lady Huber, who made all, produced an unfailing weapon. She brought big snakes with piercing teeth and vicious fangs. Their bodies she had infused with poison rather than blood, and she caused these raging dragons to emit deadly beams and to wear mantles of brilliance so that they were like gods. Then the Lady Huber raised her voice, verbalizing the curse. You know what? Yeah, this sounds pretty good, doesn't it? The Lady Huber, they had big snakes with piercing teeth and vicious fangs. Their bodies she had infused with poison rather than blood. You imagine a person that's just in a rage, going out, screaming, yelling, freaking out. I don't know if that's what's going on here, but you can picture that. And she caused these raging dragons to emit deadly beams. Yeah, we're just emitting horrific stuff. And to wear mantles of brilliance so that they were like gods. We're strong. Yeah, it's not good. Mantles of brilliance could be brilliance towards bad. All right, and then we see there at the bottom that she had verbalized the curse. Now, what is happening here is this is just showing our internal turmoil as we've come along in life. And when we first start, we don't have an issue with things that are going on. Maybe we do to some degree. Maybe we're doing things we feel guilty about and shouldn't be doing. But at some point in time, we get accustomed to that. We move on. Life just continues to unfold, and it doesn't do this for everyone. Well, actually, life unfolds for everyone. It just depends on how it unfolds. Not everyone has all of these demons that come busting out. That's the part that I mean. But what you get through here is that we are our inner self. Long ago, we're saying, "Oh my, I got to quit doing this. I have to stop." But we don't, and things come out, and pain comes out. We're not dealing with our issues. And anyway, that's what's happening here. Let's move right along. So we just had Lady Huber create all of her raging dragons and big snakes with vicious fangs and things like that. Anyone who gazes at them will be stricken down with horror. They will always raise up their bodies and never back down. Then Tiamat enlisted a horned snake, a Mashusu dragon, a Lamu hero, an Ugalu devil, a mad dog, and scorpion man. Brutal Umu devils, a half man, half fish, a half man, half bull, carrying ruthless weaponry, who reveal no fear in battle. Let's just stop and talk about that one for a second. I don't know what all of those analogs are. The Lamu hero, the Ugalu devil, the mad dog, the scorpion man. Those are analogs that mean something to them in their culture. That's going to. I would look at it and think that, okay, well, these are the things at this point of the story. Tiamat is pulling out some things that have no fear in battle, carrying ruthless weaponry. This is where in our life, when we are just losing it and it comes out of us, whatever we're doing, yeah, it's going to bust out. There's no fear. There's nothing like that. Even if there should be fear, you might end up paying the price later, but during the time this is acting out, you don't care. If you know what I'm talking about, if you've had that experience, you know what I mean. At that time, you don't care. You could think back later and go, oh my God, why did I do that? But at the time you're doing it, you don't care. Carrying ruthless weaponry who reveal no fear in battle. Her commands were so portentous that none could be ignored. And in addition to these, she recruited 11 more likewise. And above all her children of the gods who had assembled, she conferred upon Kingu the chief rank amongst them all. I'm going to stop there just for a second. I don't know what the 11 more likewise is. There's more being built right there. I don't see that as the missing Genesis piece. Anyway, okay, Kingu, we're going to have this again. This happened in on Tablet 1, and it's happening here on Tablet 2. She conferred upon Kingu the chief rank amongst them, bestowing the generalship of her army and rule of the Congress, to hold aloft the spear to signify battle and gather the warriors. She had given him high command of the entire combat force, and placed him to be seated upon the throne of rule, saying, I have conjured a spell in your name, making you foremost among the gods of Congress, and you now rule all the gods. You will reign supreme, for further you will be my soulmate. Your orders shall not be disregarded among the Anuki. She conveyed to him the tablet of fate, clasping it at his chest. What you say will not be altered, and you will speak the law. So after Kingu had received his rank, been given Anu power, and had pronounced the fates of his sons, the gods, he said, what comes out of your lips would obliterate flames. Your potent poison would serve to incapacitate the mighty. We'll stop there for a second. And we're seeing that this is not a calling into existence here. This is the repetitive thing we're seeing right here is, once again, we're confirming that we failed. You are in charge. The past, you've got it. You have got power over everything. And again, it's a storytelling culture. This is an exact repeat. You would go, why did they repeat that? Storytelling culture that wants to get points across. These are things to memorize. They're things to continue to put in the story and to realize that they're a cyclical thing that is coming back. In Genesis, we're going to see this in a different way, radically different, but it's still there. Again, we're looking at conceptual interpretations. First sin. The female is our inner being. That is our Tiamat. That has the problems. When our inner being sins and begins to learn about the world, the partaking of the knowledge of the tree of good and evil, that's analogous and metaphoric representation of the idea that we are now going in, living life, and beginning to wire ourselves based on our life experiences. And we leave the Garden of Eden. We leave our happiness and peace behind. And that when the punishment is what? That all the time that you're going to be giving childbirth, going to be painful, but it's going to continue to increase in pain. So it sounds to somebody that's not going to interpret it like, oh, that's why we have pain in childbirth. Oh my God. But the people who figure it out, they know, oh, that's that's like the tree growing up or the wheel coming around or something. Oh yeah, I see. Every time something emerges from you, it's going to not only be painful, but it's going to continue to get more and more painful. So that is going to, we need to find that in the material. I think we can find that and infer that in the material. You know, there are things that I'm seeing in here that I struggle to talk about sometimes just because they sound so different. They're so odd. For example, and this is not my place to say the whole childbirth thing. I'm a guy. What do I know? But what I do know, or what I've been told, is that if you are a woman that has multiple childbirths, that it actually gets easier as you go along and not more difficult. I know in the analogs, when you're looking at them, for example, sometimes the way it plays out in the real world and the way it plays in the psyche can be opposites of each other. I've done this before. Sometimes they're the same. Eating in the physical world is eating food. Eating in the spiritual world is learning. Fasting is not taking in food. Fasting in the spiritual world is staying quiet, not bringing in information, shutting off the outside world. Fasting is to the world, shutting all of that off. That's a direct relation. And you want that. Stripping naked in the physical world is taking all your clothes off and standing naked. If you're in public, how do you feel about that? We can't do that. If you're in the spiritual world, naked is what you do want. You don't want to be covered in things. That's analogous to the idea that you've got some pain, shame, hurt inside of you that you're trapping inside. And that is the stuff that is emerging here as the gods that are the things that are going to be acting out inside of us. In that case, you look at it and realize that the opposite effect happens when you use naked as an analog in the physical world or the spiritual world. They suddenly invert 180, where one's not desirable, one is desirable. This is a case too where you look at it and go, something's flipping a little bit inverted. Of course, giving birth is painful. I've not had that experience, but I have no doubt about that experience. I have no doubt whatsoever. So in this case, what I want to do is point out that idea there that when we look in the physical world as a woman who is supposed to have pain in childbirth because of Eve's sin, as she continues to give childbirth, it gets easier, then that's not really happening, is it? There's something else going on. When it happens in the spiritual world, what happens when we have offspring, something emerges from us, and as time goes on, it gets bigger and stronger and stronger. That's where it fits. Now we have to infer all of that teaching by looking at it and realizing that that is what is happening. We have to get behind the words. We have to get behind the teaching. And this is much earlier, 500 years, perhaps, I don't know. Different culture. It's emerging from, well, it's Babylonian, but it's emerging from Sumerian. It's who knows where. There's obviously this was something that was known, and but you could also see that it was emerging. You can see the evolution of it if you look at this. That what they're doing here, instead of the cycles emerging like that in a manner such as that, what they're doing here is just telling the story over again, and it's gonna escalate to a point where it's gonna have to be dealt with. So, yeah, fun stuff. Okay, where was I? Let's move on. And I think what I need to do is just kind of cover the big parts, kind of move through this quickly. I'm not doing a complete analysis. I'm just looking for something oddball. This right here we can just see is going back and forth and struggling internally and things like that. I don't see anything here that is unfamiliar to me. Anshar heard every word and found the news distressful. How awful were his first words, afterwards biting his lip, and he was filled inside with anxiety. His muscles tightened. Yet the outburst at his son Ea proved anything but feeble. Son, you began this conflict, so you are responsible for it. For you went forth and killed Apsu, making Tiamat mad. Having done so, need we look any further for her enemy? The Lord of Prudence, source of wisdom, unsure what to do, Nudimmud, with the lang words, replied well to Anshar. O my great father, incomprehensibly do you set destinies, holding in yourself the power of creation and destruction. O Anshar, Incomprehensibly do you determine destinies, holding in yourself the powers of creation and destruction. Okay, what they're saying right here is that you have set things in motion blindly. My Father, you are the one that you incomprehensibly set the destinies. And you yourself set the powers of creation and destruction. This is living life and just experiencing it and putting things away and becoming what we become. O Anshar, incomprehensibly do you determine destinies. Now there's two things happening here. There's something happening here. I'm not quite sure what it is. It happens a couple of times right here in a row. It says, O my great Father, incomprehensibly do you set destinies, holding in yourself the powers of creation and destruction. O Anshar, incomprehensibly do you determine destinies, holding in yourself the powers of creation and destruction. Those are also repeats with the O my great Father and O Anshar are the differences. I am unsure what that means, but it does mean something. We'll just kind of hold it. We'll get back to it. Holding in yourself the powers of creation and destruction. Please refrain from interrupting while I speak, as I intend to, and keep in mind that my actions were right and justified. For before I killed Apsu, who was there for him to rely upon? Whereas now, there has emerged this assortment of demons, and before I could even approach and defeat him, King U, he would have already annihilated me. And what then? Anshar heard every word, and they were agreeable to him, and he was motivated, therefore, to speak to Ea, saying to him, Yes, son, your deeds were without doubt praiseworthy. You can initiate your own attack, strong and determined. Ea, indeed your deeds were without doubt praiseworthy. You can initiate your own attack, strong and determined. Oh, there was that other one. Actually, one said praiseworthy and determined. Yes, son, and Ea. What did the other one say? It was this one here. Oh, my great Father, destruction, Anshar. So that one was pretty even. You know what, though? Again, this is English translation from one source, and those may not be the words that are best optimized for us to understand them. However, if we go back to the flow chart, what we have down here, Ea, the insightful one, that's where the issues are coming from at this point in time. Marduk is the hero called beyond that point. But Anshar is the one, Anshar and Kishar, the outshone parents. That is actually back in time, just before the passage of time. So that must be where the sin is taking place right there. Anshar and Kishar are the ones that are determining what life is going to be and what life experiences are going to be stored away, that eventually grow up and become gods that begin to act out, become stronger. Ea is the insightful one trying to figure this out, go back and wipe it all out, but it's not working, not successful. Okay, let's do a full swing and a modernization then here. Ea is our self early on in life. Think back at the time when you were deciding, I've had it. I'm going to go back and make changes. But you're not in the right place. You don't have what it takes. You don't have the knowledge. You don't have the skills. You don't make the changes. But you're at this point in time, and I'm getting ahead of the story. Anshar is the one that's when we started out and we're deciding what life is. Ea is the one later saying, I don't like what you're deciding here. Let's go back and rethink this. Let's make some changes in life and fix this. That is the conflict that is happening. And Anshar is telling Ea, yeah, go for it. I understand. Okay, you're right. Have at it. Okay, so getting right into the next part of the tablet then, we have Anshar telling Ea to go out and confront Tiamat, bring an end to her rebellion. May we pray only that her rage will subside from your spell. And he heard the words spoken by his grandfather Anshar. Then he went upon the railroad, veering neither right nor left. Ea continued on, keeping a lookout for Tiamat's battle lines, but he did not make his voice heard, and instead returned. He went before Anshar the king, and humbly beseeched him, Father, the ways of Tiamat are too potent for me to handle. I went in search of her route, but my spell was inferior to hers. She holds powers that are alarming, and she is utterly horrific. The forces about her are supreme. None could stand against her. Her great din never subsides, being too much for me to take. Her voice struck me with terror, so much that I headed back. Yet do not refrain, Father, rather dispatch another against her. No matter how strong a woman, she still cannot equal a man, thereby dispersing her legions and confounding her orders. This you must do before she overwhelms us with her powers." Anshar spoke anxiously, addressing himself to his son, Anu. "My dependable son, who is valiant as the Kasusu weapon, who possesses formidable power and an unbearable charge, proceed to face Tiamat and never fail to hold your position. Cause her fury to withdraw and reduce her rage into stillness. But if she fails to listen, then beseech her so as to appease her." And he heard every word that was spoken by his father Anshar. Then he went upon the roadway, veering neither right nor left. We'll stop there just to we don't get too far ahead. So there's a number of elements in here. Again, we don't have to extract everything. I'm looking for a big overview here, but this is the internal struggle. Earlier on in life, we're trying to argue with ourselves. We don't have the strength. We don't know what to do yet. We haven't hit rock bottom, but we know we're going back and forth. We can see that happening here, and we're being told twice there about veering neither right nor left on the railroad, on the tracks. This is staying straight, not veering, middle path. All of that is in here. Okay, let's just continue moving on. This is just an earlier part of us that is, we don't want to live this way. We don't. Years ago, many years ago, when things were not okay, but we weren't making changes yet, we did not want to live that way. And Ea represents the division of us that gets tired of it as we're bouncing back and forth between doing what we don't want to and saying, "Oh my God, why did I do that again?" Or "Why am I still doing that?" Or "Why am I living this way?" Or whatever makes you off course, whatever makes you unhappy. The Tiamat, whatever life is, you can't make stop yet. Okay, moving on, we're going to find the internal struggle continues, our early life struggle. Anu, our early self, tired of the way our life is. Anu continued on, keeping a lookout for Tiamat's battle lines. But he did not make his voice heard, and instead returned. He went before Anshar the king, and humbly beseeched him. "Father, the ways of Tiamat are far too potent for me to handle. I went in search of her route, but my spell was inferior to hers. She holds powers that are alarming, and she is utterly horrific." See more repeating going on there. "The forces about her are supreme. None could stand against her. Her great din never subsides, being too much for me to take. Her voice struck me with terror, so much so that I headed back. Yet do not refrain, Father. Rather dispatch another against her. No matter how strong a woman, she still cannot equal a man." Okay, and we know as we're moving along here that woman and man does not mean man and woman on planet Earth in the physical realm. This means conscious and subconscious. That, however, in this case, it's not exactly used in that way, so we're going to be careful. Anyway, woman does not equal a man does not mean in the physical world. It means the inner being, the outer, the conscious, that sort of thing. Thereby dispersing her legions and confounding her orders. This you must do before she overwhelms us with her powers. Anshar could not find words, but cast his eyes unto the floor. He ground his teeth and could give no encouragement to Ea. So that all the Ijiji gathered together, and all of the Anuki. For a time they sat without speaking, lips closed, then spoke. "Will not any god step forward, or is our fate predetermined? Will not anyone go confront Tiamat with force of arms?" Then from secluded abode, Ea sent forth a declaration. Force of arms, you see where that was dark right there? That was something that was missing from the tablet, so added in. I want to make sure we remember that right there. And, so we're basically looking at this saying, I want to go fight my earlier self, but I don't have the strength to do it, honestly. It's just too strong. There's too much built in there, and I don't know how to look at it yet. This emerges in the idea that we're reasoning with ourselves, telling ourselves, I'm not going to do that again. I am finished with it. I'm not going to act that way anymore. But we don't know that there's something at a deeper level inside of us at that point. So we're going back and saying, you know what? We are telling ourselves, quit. I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it again. Then you get triggered. Bam, there it goes. To the faultless one of Anshar, father of the mighty gods, him with a true heart, like a fellow citizen or countryman, that formidable heir who was destined to defend his father, who strikes fearlessly into the fray, Marduk, the champion. And he related to him the plans he had formulated, saying, Marduk, heed my counsel. Give ear to your father's words. The son of his who brings him confidence, go before Anshar. Move in near to him and make resolute declarations to him. All of his anxieties will take flight once you are before him. And Lord Marduk was well pleased with his father's words. Thus he went and approached to stand in front of Anshar, and Anshar gazed upon him, and his heart filled with glee. Then he kissed him upon the lips and put aside his fears. And Marduk raised his voice to be heard, saying to Anshar, Father, you must not remain silent, but rather speak to me, and permit me to go. Let me do that which you wish me to do. Anshar, you must not remain silent, but rather speak to me, and permit me to go. Let me do that which you wish me to do. And Anshar raised his voice to be heard, saying to Marduk, What sort of man would be willing to send you off to this war? Son, this is Tiamat, a female, and she it is who will attack you. And Marduk raised his voice to be heard, saying to Anshar, O father, you brought me to life. Be glad and of good cheer, for soon your foot will be resting upon the very neck of Tiamat. O Anshar, who brought me to life, be glad and of good cheer. Okay, Anshar's not getting the job done. We need more. We need Marduk. We need more tools. We need our supernatural aid if we're following the later template. We're going to need to bring some tools along that's going to have to go to a deeper level because we cannot defeat Tiamat. Our early self and that part of us that is got us off course versus the part of us that wants us on course. The off-course part in the beginning is stronger. We're trying to make a transition. And that's just normal life as we're living through life, coming through the physical world, and we're trying to emerge above that. That's the transition we're making. But the transition that we've got going on right here actually is that the calling is happening right now. Marduk, although the basis of Marduk as the hero was created earlier, right now Marduk is being called. So let's go ahead and just see where we end up with on the finishing up this tablet. For soon your foot will be resting upon the very neck of Tiamat. Then Anshar raised his voice to be heard, speaking to Marduk. Go then, son, with my blessings, with all your superior wisdom, and cut Tiamat down to size with your perfect incantations. Go on your way at once within the chariot of the storm clouds, so that her men cannot advance, but rather make them retreat. You see that bold her men right there? We'll get back to it. And he was gladdened and spoke to his grandfather, saying, Ruler of the gods, deviser of the destinies of the high gods, if I am to be your defender and defeat Tiamat to preserve you, then assemble a commission and proclaim a singular destiny. You see that right there? Proclaim a singular destiny. We always need to have a destination, whether it is looking to get the golden fleece from the far side of the world to recover the control of your own kingdom, or whether it is seeking the kingdom of heaven within. This is what keeps us on course when we're on our search. We know what is the destiny. If you get off course, just look and see if you're heading to your destiny. And rest content among the others within Ubshu Ukanaku, for my own words rather than yours will determine destiny. Whatever I accomplish will not be undone, never overturned, and the verdict that issues from my lips will never be rescinded. Okay, the Ubshu Ukanaku is the dwelling place of the gods. That was in the first tablet. It's still being held as an analogous term here. I would prefer to just have it as, if I was rewriting it for myself, I would say where my mind is, my subconscious. That where everything resides up there. And then the other one where it said that just previous to this one, it had so that her men cannot advance, but rather make them retreat. Nowhere in here has there been any men yet. Men should not appear at this point in time in the Enuma Elish. At first, gods are created. The reason they are gods to begin with is because they have more power. They can act out. They are going to be destroyed later and replaced with men. Men will be obedient. Those are the people that you want to live inside of you, that are doing your bidding. They're not what is inside of you acting out. You are in charge of them. So at this point in time, her men cannot advance. She actually doesn't have men at this point. She has gods that you don't want them to advance. You want to make them retreat. Okay, that's where we are. So far in this tablet, we've been created. We have become a product of our naming. We have sequences along. We have developed into a point where we've got a difficult life. There's a lot of raucousness. We have been struggling internally, trying to resolve it, and it's not happening. And we've just employed Tiamat, and we've just called Marduk, that part of us that is intended to be the hero, to go on the hero's journey and go back and resolve our past. The one who has the capacity to go back and take care of those evil demons that we picked up along the way. I mix these stories up. We're not going back to destroy evil demons. In mythology, we would. This would be that point. But we're actually going back to destroy the gods that have gotten out of control. All of them, though, varying analogs, are nevertheless containing the conceptual idea that it is the stuff in our past that is bundled up and hurting us. Okay, I'm going to bring this to an end. I think we got it covered pretty well, and we're moving along a little bit better. I don't see anything in here that I can't explain, and there's pieces in there that I didn't. We just kind of breezed over this. I'm sure there's much more in here if somebody really analyzed it, but yeah, I'm not seeing in here anything that would explain to me what that pieces in Genesis, where the names and the number sequences are almost like some sort of a grid pattern in my head that I see that there. I'm not quite sure what that is. But anyway, it's been fun on this video, and yeah, I wanted to respond to, there is a lot of repetition in here. There sure is. Storytelling culture and trying to make it longer, but also at the same time nesting in there that things continue to repeat over and over again. We begin to look at this and say, hey, wait a minute, those people are me. I am that person at this point in time. And then later you go, I'm kind of identifying with that person. Then I kind of identify with that person. At some point you might put yourself into this story and go, oh, I don't know if that would be the case or not, but that's kind of what we're doing now, actually. So maybe so. Except they didn't have all the sources to look at like we do. Okay, that's it for this video then. I'm going to go ahead and I'll get to the next tablet pretty soon. And hope it was fun. Post any questions, comments, and love one another. And I'll see you in the next video.